Sexual violence has become a national issue in India, triggering protests across the country. Last year, Human Rights Watch said laws had improved, but police and community leaders were still failing to implement changes, especially in rural areas. Now, Bollywood stars have come out publicly talking about their experiences of abuse and harassment. The question is whether this will have any impact. It's the world's largest democracy, where women still struggle for equal rights in the patriarchal society. But now India is having its MeToo moment, with Bollywood actresses speaking out about their treatment at the hands of powerful men.
The MeToo movement has expanded from Hollywood to Bollywood, with top Indian film stars and politicians being accused of sexual assault. But is India ready? Ex-Bollywood actress Tanushree Dutta started the India MeToo storm. She alleged she had been sexually harassed by well-known actor Nana Patekar during a 2008 film shoot. Dutta has since filed a new police report against Patekar, who denies any wrongdoing. Despite the backlash they may face, women are finding the courage to speak.
Men should really question their own privilege and try and find it in them to believe survivors.
In a patriarchal society where men have been so untouchable, even those in power have found themselves under pressure. MJ Akbar, a junior foreign minister, recently resigned after he was accused of sexual harassment by 20 women.
All these big names, as big as the ministers in question and film stars, at least there is that sense of guilt which is heaping up on them, which might make them step down from their positions. That would be punishment enough.
More women are publicly naming and shaming offenders. MeToo Rising shows where the movement is trending on Google, with India sparking the most debate. Indian women are rising up and using social media as their pedestal. They have started a conversation around making the workplace safe for all. But will those exploiting the rights of women be held accountable? And will the MeToo movement deliver any real change in Indian society?
Let me introduce today's panel. Joining us on Skype from Delhi in India is filmmaker Deepika Narayan Bhardwaj. Also in New Delhi is Rituparna Chatterjee, independent journalist and also runs the Twitter page for MeToo India. Here at Roundtable, with me in the studio, we have Haroon Rashid, entertainment reporter at the BBC Asian Network, and Sharan Dhaliwal, editor-in-chief of Burnt Roti magazine. Good to have all of you with us. Let me start with my Skype guests, because Rituparna, the MeToo India that you run on Twitter, that's a sort of complement to the global official MeToo movement that we've seen. Why is that so important in India?
When I started the handle, you have to understand one thing, that several women have taken it on themselves to tweet out account of women who have been abused. They've taken on the role of, outing predators. So already there are a lot of people who are doing this. But when I started the handle, my one and only thought was, this is a stupendous moment in the history of equal rights that India is witnessing. And from day one, I needed a place to, kind of chronicle all that. Having said that, this is an anarchist movement. This does not fall under any framework, established framework or a legal framework. So it isn't like an official movement, neither it is the official handle of the movement. Anybody else, can chronicle the same. But this is just a place to kind of tell the stories, to read survivor accounts, and also to read opinions written by women on it. It's kind of a go-to place to track the movement on a day-to-day basis.
So it's giving a voice to women who feel that they have suffered. Deepika, it's interesting that this movement it's gone across Bollywood. It's also gone through other industries, hasn't it? Are you surprised at the momentum, and why has it gathered such momentum?
I'm absolutely not surprised with the momentum of Me Too movement. In fact, since it started in Hollywood, there were always questions. When will it hit India? When will people be called out of here? And slowly and steadily, there were cases that we were hearing about. But uh, when it started eventually, it catapulted into such a big moment that nobody expected it to happen. And with the minister stepping down, a lot of people are finding power to actually speak up because they know that they are being believed and heard, which probably was not the case earlier. It's not that women have not come forward and complained of sexual harassment. We have had laws in place. But this momentum of believing the women who have come out and these accounts that are being shared on social media have actually gave a lot of, I would say, courage to women to speak up. But at the same time, there are some concerns raised in India as well, because like Ritu said, the moment is anarchist. There is no format to it. There are a lot of anonymous accounts that have come to the fore. But overall, I think we are seeing a great change when it comes to sexual harassment at workplace and the perspective that we have towards it.
Deepika, you make a very important point there. Let me pick that up with people here in the studio. This movement's been a long time coming. I mean, we've seen problems in Indian society for many years. Tanrisha Dutta made allegations like this before. Why now are allegations like this being taken seriously?
I think with the help of the Hollywood Me Too movement, more than anything, I think now that sexual harassment has now come to the forefront, it's on the table to be something to talk about. Now that, like, it was in 2008 that she came out with the claims, but now that Hollywood has said that we can talk about this, we're going to put people, like, people are going to be charged for this.
People are going to... She wasn't believed before. It's just that it wasn't seen as an issue that could be talked about.
Yeah, most likely. And I guess it's based around influences as well, the most people with the most influence. So when you have people within pop culture that talk about a certain subject, if they have the right influence, then people will listen to them.
Right.
And so when now that the topic is put on the table, and people are now, with influence, are now talking about it as well, her case has now been brought back to the forefront.
Yeah, and of course she's not the only one. I know you interviewed Dutta quite recently. How is she feeling about all of this?
Yeah, I spoke to her just 2 weeks after she initially made those allegations again in September 2018, and she said that this is exactly what she said back in 2008. It's just that because of the Me Too hashtag, the Me Too movement, she is being taken seriously, and she wasn't 10 years ago. In fact, she was made to feel bad for coming out and speaking out against Nana Patekar 10 years ago, and there was almost an element of character assassination. Oh, she must have provoked him to do something, or she must have enticed him to do something, or she must have said something that led him to think that she was interested in him in some sort of way.
Really? Is that the sort of attitude that we're seeing, that women themselves are being blamed for these things happening to them?
And it's not just Tanushree Dutta who's saying this to me. For the last year, since the Me Too movement in America has taken off, I've been waiting for Bollywood stars to speak about this. Sonam Kapoor, who's a famous Bollywood actress, I spoke to her earlier this year and I said, why are we not hearing these stories from Bollywood? What's wrong with actually coming out and speaking up? And she said victim blaming, victim shaming is the biggest issue that's preventing these actresses from speaking up, because no matter how famous they are or how much protection they might have in the industry, there is an element in Indian society that will always put the blame on the woman.
And actually, we saw that in the Me Too in Hollywood as well, that women were afraid to come forward because they thought it might affect their careers. Ritupana, is that, I mean, I know you've had, there's a lot of personal experiences that are coming out on social media. Is that the kind of thing that you're coming across?
I would like to suggest that, I would like to say that there's another very crucial thing that is happening here. Apart from the victim blaming, which we all know that happens, but another huge worry is legal threat. A lot of women who I'm speaking to right now at this moment via private messages and getting their accounts, the only thing that is stopping them, and these are not anonymous women. These are women who have they've got powerful jobs. One of them, they founded companies, but the only thing that is stopping them from coming forward is the threat of legal defamation, criminal defamation. Criminal defamation in India, as you know, can make a woman liable for prosecution, which is a huge deterrent for women to kind of come up and speak about their issues, because if a case falls through, or if they are at huge legal risk, and legal help in India is not easy to get for common people.
Isn't this changing now in India, though? There have been new laws, though, which have been brought into play, which are supposed to better protect women. Is that not happening? Deepika, is there better protection across the workplace against sexual harassment?
Well, the laws are in place. This movement against sexual harassment at workplace has been going on for years, though we got the law eventually in 2013 only. But there have been discussions going on. What Ritu said is, I would say to an extent right, but when you have an accusation, and right now the hashtag #MeToo movement, because of the prominence it has in social media, all these accounts are published. They already go to the public before they even enter the court or any sort of formal trial. So there are a lot of men who are feeling that they have been falsely accused and they see no recourse, and that's why they go to the court and take the legal route. Yes, legal cases are very difficult to follow in India. Then that definitely is sort of putting some women back from taking the allegations forward. But I would say somewhere the biggest question that has been asked against the movement in India is, why will not we pursue the course of regular justice? Will we stop at just accusing, shaming, and naming men? Or we are going to take a proper, because there are allegations of very serious, grave sexual assault amounting to rape. And when these cases are not being pursued in the court of law, then people are questioning that is it going to be just a social media accusation format?
Let me pick up on one point you made about a lot of men feeling that they're being unfairly accused, because well, let's ask our sole man in the studio, in the discussion here. Is this the case that that some people fear the Me Too campaign is being manipulated and that men are being unfairly treated, or actually is it time for a proper rebalancing because the scales have always been weighted in favour of men?
I think it is a mixture of both, actually. The first part of what you just asked me about whether, you know, men feel like the Me Too movement is being used almost as an excuse to attack certain men is true to an extent. The writer of the Netflix series Sacred Games, Varun Grover, was accused in an anonymous letter of sexual harassment, and he denies those allegations strongly, but the point is that he has now been tarnished almost with this Me Too movement accusation, and although his employers Netflix have said they will continue working with him and they can't actually find any evidence to suggest that those accusations are true, there will always now be this element hanging over his head of what those accusations were about, and certainly when you don't have a name or a face of the accuser, you don't really know to what extent that person has any ulterior motives in putting that out there.
And that's the problem, the court of social media. Go on, Ritu.
May I just like counter that with one couple of points. One thing about Varun Grover is he's not lost any work because of this, but in hundreds and hundreds of cases of women who've accused men of, violating their bodily and mental space, they've actually lost work. Number two is, Deepika, you say that, why don't people go through the, criminal justice system? I know of accounts, and you also know of so many, and because this is a gender-neutral movement, it's not, there's men who've been abused as well as there are women who've been abused. It's not easy to kind of go through the criminal justice system. It is an unusual movement. The criminal justice system is there for men to take recourse at any point.
Well, all right, let's talk about the criminal justice system. Is this movement going to make a difference? Are we going to see changes in Indian society and in the criminal justice system? The government says it's strengthening legal frameworks. Do you think we'll see any changes?
I think there needs to be a cultural change before, the criminal justice can actually make a significant change. So, I think visiting India when I was young a lot, there was a whole kind of imbalance about, men and women, how men and women acted towards each other. Like, when I was very young, I was very openly groped a lot the whole time I was in India. And that was just kind of an accepted thing. People weren't just like...
That came out after that horrific 2012...
Yeah.
gang rape, that this kind of pestering and harassment of women actually goes on a daily basis and is part of life.
Absolutely, absolutely. But then specifically with the Delhi case, what happened is the whole of Delhi kind of just like, it shocked them, it shook them, in fact. And I think there was a shift there. There was a shift in the way people spoke about the way that women were treated. And I think these kind of conversations need to keep going. People need to keep talking about it.
So the fact that high profile people are talking about it, and Harun makes the point that no big A-listers have actually come out and talked about their experiences.
Yeah.
But are we now seeing more pressure being exerted because some parts of Bollywood are talking about it?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, I think working in Bollywood is such a difficult place to get into unless, you know, unless you have nepotism on your side.
But isn't that the thing of any kind of media industry, that in every newsroom I've ever worked in, the bosses tend to be men?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
You have young female reporters coming through the ranks, and you have that kind of...
But Bollywood is such an institute, though. It's such a large institute, and like coming into Bollywood is such a big thing. And so when you have your step in there, coming back out again, you will not receive another step back in. So making an allegation means that your career is then potentially destroyed. And that's really difficult for people to do, because then how are you going to survive?
Well, I think there are preventive measures in place, and I think they have come into place after Tanushree Datta made her allegations 2 months ago. For example, since then, without actually using the term time's up, of course, if you remember, in Hollywood, there was the MeToo movement, and just a couple of months after, there was time's up. MeToo was saying, this has happened with me, but time's up was saying it's time's up for these powerful men to be abusing their power, and that has actually silently been happening in Bollywood over the last 2 months. So influential actors like Amir Khan have detached themselves from working with filmmakers.
They've actually turned film roles down, haven't they?
They've walked out of film projects because they don't want to be associated with a film where somebody has been accused of sexual misconduct. Similarly, Phantom Films, which is a major studio, it's a major independent studio in Bollywood, has closed its doors completely because one of the 4 partners in that firm was accused of sexual misconduct. So there are palpable changes taking place in Bollywood that we can see that really are positive signs of these women being protected who are making these allegations. That if you come forward and say something, you will be heard, you will be believed. Priyanka Chopra, Sonam Kapoor, Farhan Akhtar, these influential stars are writing on Twitter that they believe survivors or believe victims, and that was never happening a year or 2 ago at all.
I think there's quite a distance there, though. There's quite a distance with someone tweeting something and someone that's experienced sexual abuse then coming forward. And I think that support system is really lacking there. Because if someone does come forward, you know, you can't just say Priyanka Chopra tweeted about it, I can come forward, you know. I think there's a whole support base they're missing.
It's the next step.
I think there is a lot of support. I think there is a lot of support in every industry, if I may say. 11 women filmmakers in Bollywood have decided not to work with men who have been accused. There are people who are going to taking the cases to the court. So there is definitely a support system, I would say. But there's a lot of confusion as well on the whole aspect of sexual harassment. What exactly is a Me Too claim? What are the kind of allegations? I heard Amir Khan talk on Karan Johar's show, and he said he's taking an intellectual stand. He's taking an emotional stand. And he doesn't know what is right, what is wrong, because he's listening to all kind of things. But then he's taking a stand to not work with anybody who is accused. But there are people who are scared as well. And now we are hearing conversations that people will have very clear contracts signed before they work with female co-stars or actors in Bollywood. I had never heard about something like that. So like Harun said, I think there is a change for sure where people are saying what is right conduct and what is not wrong, and what are you...
You're a filmmaker. Tell me about your experiences. Do you agree that the Indian film industry is very patriarchal and there is a problem for women trying to make their way in that industry?
I think it is very difficult for anyone to make inroads into Bollywood. It is such a phenomenally successful industry. And like we were saying, there is nepotism. There are already established stars who have their kids coming in, their cousins coming in. So for freshers, it is very difficult. And I will not say that it is only difficult for women. It is difficult for men as well. There are a lot of men who are now coming up with their Me Too stories and how they were asked for sexual favors and denied work as well. But it is certainly difficult for women to make their roads up because it is dominated by men essentially. But there are a lot of women stars who have said that the industry is supportive to women. There are a lot of projects, huge projects that are being executed just by women. So I would not say it is difficult only for women. It is difficult for a lot of people to get into Bollywood. But what is happening right now is there was an understood code of conduct that you will not speak about the give and take of sexual favors. And everybody knew it, but nobody knew it because nobody would talk about it.
Right.
So that feeling has broken now.
Ritipana, I just want to pick up on this point that Sharon made about it's not so easy for women to come forward, even if they're hearing these other stories, because it's what happens after that. They're not getting the support they need to continue with their claim or get justice. Do you agree with that, Ritipana?
Yeah, absolutely. So even if you follow that India Me Too handle, there are several accounts of women who actually have filed police complaints. There are FIRs, and there are, police are tagged in the tweets that we filed this like a month ago, 2 months ago, 6 months ago. We've not found justice. Even if you file a complaint, it's not easy to follow this whole process through. That's one thing. And it's also, I feel, at some level, it's also very unfair to, kind of expect women to put their names to stories, come out in, large numbers. I know there is safety in numbers, but once they do, there is no support to see the whole process through. We had, pro bono lawyers helping women out, but pro bono lawyers are basically working for free.
Well, maybe the question should be, what do men need to do as well? And there was an interesting quote from the producer and writer Nikhil Taneja, who wrote, "We, the men of Bollywood, have been complicit for too long." And actually men need to also stop this behaviour. Do you guys?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Men need to have a look at themselves. Absolutely, look in the mirror and see what they actually do.
The kind of attitudes. I mean, he's saying, every time you see on screen a 50-year-old actor chasing a 20-year-old actress for the story, that should be challenged. Behaviour like that and attitudes like that should be challenged.
I mean, you see in things like Bollywood the way that women are kind of the way that they're shown, scantily clad. They're very young, and always it's Shah Rukh Khan as the lead, and he's in his 50s. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense.
I mean, this is an accusation that's been lodged against Hollywood as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wouldn't agree to that. I'm sorry, Bollywood has actually moved on a lot. We are seeing some really, really good content coming out of Bollywood. It's no longer always the Shah Rukh Khan chasing a young girl. I think we have moved on from that. But yes, of course, we have grown.
Yeah, we have moved on. We have definitely moved on. But
we have made mistakes. He spoke about a song that he featured in, but now he says, we have understood, we have matured, we know what is right, we have better understanding.
But it's taken to this long, is my point. It's taken to this long to say, where he's gotten so big, he's had these many roles, he's one of the biggest actors out there, and it's got until now to say, oh yeah, I am quite old for this, actually.
It's not just him, right? He's giving the audiences what they want. The audiences want to see him romancing these young girls. They want to see Shah Rukh Khan with a Deepika Padukone or an Anushka Sharma or a Katrina Kaif. Or these are the girls that get the audiences to the cinemas.
So how do we change attitudes in Indian society? Because surely it's that expectation that needs to change.
It is, but you have actors and producers like Farhan Akhtar who runs a campaign called Mard. That stands for Men Against Rape and Discrimination. And his aim is to, at a very grassroots level, when boys are 10 or 11, teach them about respecting women, teach them about how you behave with women. But I am unsure about whether those values that he's trying to instill through his campaign translate into the work that he's maybe doing in movies. I challenged him once about a film that he did called Race, which starred Shah Rukh Khan, and in that he had Sunny Leone, the former porn star, now Bollywood actress, performing an item number. And I said, well, what kind of message is that when you've got Sunny Leone dancing amongst a whole bar full of men who are trying to just grab at her? I mean, it doesn't quite fit in.
Is the end point that, like every other industry in every other part of the world, we're only going to see change when we see more women in positions of power?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was just going to add, I was just going to say that Bollywood, just 2 minutes ago, I was just listening to this and thinking that the only way, I think, not just in Bollywood, in every industry this can change is having women, film writers, having screenwriters who are women and getting more work out of women. And, in every industry have women in decision-making positions. And that itself, kind of leads to a lot of change.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I agree. We need to change the narrative, and the narrative is coming from men at the moment, and we need to change that to come from women, and so that the whole story will then change.
But Sharon mentioned earlier that more, big actresses need to come forward. I also agree that more big actresses do need to come forward, but I just wonder whether these big actresses haven't experienced sexual harassment. There is a possibility, because to get to the level that these actresses have, they have had some sort of male figure protecting them, guiding them, mentoring them, and that has put other men off, or has warned other men away from trying to behave inappropriately with these women. Whether it's Deepika Padukone, she was launched by Shah Rukh Khan, so was Anushka Sharma, or whether it's Kareena Kapoor, who's the daughter and granddaughter of famous Bollywood stars, there is an element that these people have been very secure and protected.
But they are supporting the Me Too campaign, and I wonder whether we'll see more allegations as we go forward, as this campaign continues. Thank you to all my guests today. That's it from me for now. Until next time, bye-bye.